Sing praises, all you people. Sing praises to the Lord. Sing praises, all you peoples. Sing praises to the Lord. Sing praises, all you peoples. Sing praises to the Lord. Sing praises, all you peoples. Sing praises to the Lord. Sing praises, all you people. Sing praises to the Lord. Sing praises, all you people. Sing praises to the Lord.
A reading from the Gospel of Matthew. Jesus left that place and went away to the district of Tyre and of Sidon. Just then, a Canaanite woman in that region came out and started shouting, "Have mercy on me, Lord, Son of David. My daughter is tormented by a demon." But he did not answer her at all. And his disciples came and urged him, saying, "Send her away, for she keeps shouting after us." He answered, "I was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel." But she came and knelt before him, saying, "Lord, help me." He answered, "It is not fair to take the children's food and throw it to the dogs." She said, "Yes, Lord, yet even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table." Then Jesus answered her, "Woman, great is your faith. Let it be done for you as you wish." And her daughter was healed instantly. Word of the Lord.
Sing praises, all you people. Sing praises to the Lord. Sing praises, all you people. Sing praises to the Lord.
Joseph could no longer control himself. I love that image because I feel like that's the place where we are collectively at as a society. We're just kind of all on the edge of breaking, right? We've all just kind of had it and it's about to come apart. There is this image of Joseph ugly crying that begins the Genesis reading, crying so hard, even Pharaoh's household, whom he has dismissed from his presence, can hear him. So like, in a different part of the palace headquarters entirely. And then we have that image of Jesus calling women names. And these are just such supercharged readings for what feels like this emotionally supercharged time that we're in. And it feels like lately the lectionary has just been that. It has been this kind of prophetic window into who we are, what we're experiencing, how we're moving through it, giving us spiritual tools to think about where it is that we experience God's faithfulness towards us and how that allows us to mirror that faithfulness back through our own faith toward others. And this is so important, I think, for us to reflect on when we think about the nature of the Bible, the nature of Scripture. I think very often, many of us, and I'm maybe most guilty of all, approach Scripture as a kind of cerebral exercise rather than as a personal encounter. And it's so important to remember that the point of Scripture is not necessarily to point to itself, but to point to the God that it is always proclaiming in and through these words and stirring us up in ways that are deliberately uncomfortable. And if I had to use one word to describe both the Genesis passage and the Matthew passage, that would be it: uncomfortable. Both of these stories push us into uncomfortable places. As the story of Joseph's reunion unfolds, we feel that tension build because we know what his brothers have done. We can also feel that secret shame and guilt, and you kind of wonder what's going through his head. These are deeply psychological stories. We also kind of feel a little bit like maybe we're anticipating a really intense smackdown from Joseph, because we remember earlier in these same stories that we've been tracking through the month that he can be a little cocky, a little self-assured. And you kind of wonder, when someone acquires the kind of power that he has, what is his response going to be when he suddenly recognizes these men who delivered him into captivity? I don't know. I don't know about you. When I'm hearing that story, even though I know how it ends, there's still just this deeply uncomfortable, unresolved tension. Where is this going? What's going to happen? But Joseph doesn't actually end up delivering the vengeance that they so richly deserve. And I'm not actually sure what makes me more uncomfortable, to be honest. The fact that his own brothers sold him into slavery, pretty uncomfortable, right? Or the fact that he's all like, oh, don't worry, girl, it's fine, it's no big deal. God's got a plan, it's been great, I'm gonna provide for you, come over, it's cool. Like, what? Really, I would not react that way if my sister sold me into slavery. That would not be okay. And that would definitely not be the answer I give after acquiring the kind of power he has. So again, that discomfort is moving in all kinds of different directions. Betrayal in one direction, but generosity in another. It's important to pay attention to how Scripture is like this ocean with these tidal forces that is tugging at us. The gospel, where Jesus literally goes to where he's not supposed to go. So one of the things that's really important to understand is that venturing into the territory that he's venturing into Tyre, into Sidon, is going even beyond the limits of where he had just told his own disciples not to go, like 5 chapters earlier. So in Matthew chapter 10, he tells his disciples, do not go into Gentile territory, do not go into Samaria. But just now, they're going way beyond Samaria, beyond Judea, they're going beyond Samaria, even beyond the Galilee. Tyre and Sidon were well outside the zone of comfort for most first century Jews. Not that they would never have traveled there, trade took people all over the empire. But I mean, it probably wouldn't be the first place that his disciples would have chosen as a vacation spot, just, thinking about that. So in other gospel tellings of this same story, we receive a really important detail. I didn't just say that casually to be flip. Jesus specifically goes there because he doesn't want to be known, okay? He's just finished a long period of ministry, of preaching, of healing, of recruiting disciples, and now it seems that he wants to slip under the radar, not only from his fans, but also from his foes. Tyre and Sidon were really Phoenician, right? It was pretty well outside the purview of Herod's power. And it was explicitly Phoenician. It was explicitly Greek. It was this Syrian coast that even today is an important part of Lebanese national identity. They remain important cities in the current state of Lebanon. So this is not typical territory. And you can almost imagine how his disciples must have felt as they were inching closer and closer to each border, progressively moving farther and farther north, beyond their literal comfort zone into this physical geography that embodies the instability, the fragmentation, the fear that so many Jews held towards Gentile and Greek life. Remember that these are Jews who lived under the occupation of Greeks for many years and celebrated their liberation from the Seleucid dynasty in the 3rd century under Judas Maccabeus. So yeah, there's some really strong associations with the Greeks. They're not super down with the Greeks. Lots of discomfort going on. And again, we think about how that discomfort moves in and through this story, because Jesus doesn't even respond to her cries at first, which I don't know about you, but for me is like heartbreaking and sort of unbelievable. Why would my God neglect the cry of any person who is seeking his help in earnest? It's really hard to sit with, right? But then when she does finally come in front of him, she uses this wonderful phrase that ultimately breaks him. And that makes me equally uncomfortable because it's like, on the one hand, I don't like the fact that God's ignoring her. And on the other, I don't like the fact that God is sort of admitting that God might be wrong. Both of those things are deeply uncomfortable. They're deliberately moving us into the space, again, of real struggle where we're just not allowed to sit with easy answers to hard questions. The scriptures are not willing to let us go there. They're not willing to let us remain in that space. Discomfort is so real for all of us right now. And there's never been a moment where I think it's more important for us to embrace the witness of Scripture as this experience, not a cerebral exercise, but a personal encounter that is drawing us out from those initial places of fear and of reservation, which is exactly what we have in both of these stories as the starting point, right? Into this open and expansive space that is unknown. There are still a ton of unresolved questions. Yeah, okay, so Joseph forgives his brothers, but what next? Okay, they're supposed to settle in the land of Egypt. Is that really how the story ends? Obviously, it's not how the story ends. We know there's a lot more. So Jesus, grants this Phoenician woman her request. What next? What does that mean for his ministry? What does that mean for the Gentiles? What does that mean for all of this? Lots of unresolved questions. But notice how Joseph in Genesis and Jesus in Matthew both hold that discomfort. And notice how holding that discomfort does not mean resolving it. It means bearing. It means even sometimes being the object, being the source of that discomfort. So in this moment where we're facing all of these really uncomfortable choices, where we're facing all of these adaptive challenges that almost none of us feel like we're really equipped to face into, it's so important to remember and to acknowledge that we worship a God and we follow a God who is deliberately stretching us in these places. So we're going to take a little moment to answer a question. I'm going to ask a question and you all will have time to kind of ponder it in your hearts, maybe chat about it. And the question that I have for you is, where is your discomfort right now? What is your emotionally charged space? And personally, but also, corporately, socially. And where do you feel like God might be leading you beyond the discomfort into the unresolved but beautiful tension of the real and liberating presence of God, even in those places where it feels like the border, the boundary is past our capacity to move into?